For years, my kind has faced discrimination, whether it be in the workplace or in the everyday life of the American society. We have been discriminated against, racially handled, unjustly treated, and most importantly, killed under our own government's protection system. We have and still are facing racial oppression. The government system tries to racially divide us while also trying to do the best they can to keep us in poverty. Us blacks are essentially living in a world that we are unwanted in. I remember learning about racism, but I never really remember experiencing it until I was 10 years old at the store by myself just looking for a snack. And I'm standing there in the aisle and I'm looking for what I wanted to get. And I see this white lady approach me from the end of the aisle. And I could see her looking at me from the corner of my eye, but I pay no mind to it. And I start looking again. This time I go over to the next aisle, and there she is once again, following me. She's pretending to act like she's looking for something. This time I'm acknowledging the fact, and I think to myself, maybe she's just looking for the same thing I'm looking for. So I deliberately go all the way across the store to the toiletry section, and not less than 5 seconds later, there she is once again. So I quickly just stop what I'm looking for, and I hurry back home to where my mom was, and I tell her what happened. And she asked me, was there anything I was doing that could have made her think I was stealing? And I tell her no, I was just trying to look for a snack, and I showed her the money that I had in my hand. She took me back up to the store, and she had me reiterate what happened. And the lady said she wasn't following me, that she was just looking for something. And before my mom could say anything, I quickly cut her off, and I said, but I was in the candy section, and there you were. And then I moved over to the next aisle, and there you were once again. And then I went all the way over to the toiletry section. There you were once again. So there's no way that in your head you could have had the thought of candy, then the next of toothbrushes. She was quiet and demanded that both me and my mother leave the store. She was going to call the cops. I remember that day that my mom told me about racism. She told me that she said, baby, you are black. Your ancestors come from Africa. Your ancestors come from slavery. And I laughed and I told her that I already learned about this. And she grabbed me by my chin, forcing me to look right into her eyes. And she told me, not a lot of people like us in the world. And I became very intrigued, and I asked her questions to which she answered. And the one thing I remember her telling me was that because I was black, I was simply going to have to work harder compared to a white person, and that my life was going to be much harder. I was going to experience discrimination, and I was going to experience racism. Ever since then, I was proud to be black, and I was okay with the fact that I was going to have to work harder. Little did I know life was and still is so much more different. I remember being in high school, being with my dad, and it being my first day, and I was a new kid in town. And I get to the school, and I have my schedule in my hand, and I'm looking for what class I got. And I'm walking around, and I see this group of white people, this group of white boys directly across from me. And they're walking past jokingly, and I pay no mind to them. And then I hear one of them say the N-word. And I stop looking for my class, and I walk over, and I said, what did you just say? And my face is right in front of his. And I can see that he's scared. And I tell all of them, don't you ever say anything like that again. And they quickly say sorry, and they leave and walk up to their classes. Little did I know the little blacks that went there, they were allowing these white people to say this. They were allowing the racism to go on. So you might say it's just a word, but it's so much more than that. The word holds so much more value. It was a word that us blacks has taken back from our oppressors and turned it to something positive. So to hear the white people say that, it really angered me. And just the thought that they wouldn't say that around anybody else that actually had some thought. I also remember on a separate occasion being with my dad during my high school year, my sophomore year. I remember being in class, being the only black person sitting in there, and the rest being white. And my teacher asking us how our weekend went and what we were doing. And then this one guy raised his hand and told us how him and his dad were searching for a new Mercedes to buy. And hearing all the things you people were saying, it really made me think how much I wish I could just switch my life with anybody in that classroom. And then we went on talking about the stressful things that's happening in our lives, and hearing what people said, it just seemed so normal to them but so crazy to me. I remember this one girl saying how her maid didn't clean up her room the right way. So there I was, in a school full of rich white kids. I was okay with the fact, I didn't mind it, but the thing that I regret doing and promise myself to this day that I won't ever do again is changing who I was. I changed the way I acted and the way I talked just to receive validation from somebody that didn't care about me. I remember feeling like Star in the movie The Hate You Give. It was like when I was at home, I could be myself and I could be who I really was. And then when I went to school, I had to put on this disguise and act like somebody I wasn't. And I promised myself that I would never do that again. Because once again, I should be proud of being black. I should be proud of my culture and my history. I also remember being in a group discussion, me being the only black kid and the rest being white. And we were talking about racism within our society. And I remember the teacher asking something like, how do you feel about racism directed towards African Americans within our society? And this one guy raised his hand and he said, I feel like there's not as much racism directed towards African Americans as the media tries to portray it is. And I was surprised by not only myself for getting angry, but for his answer. It was more of a concerning feeling. So before anybody could say something, I cut him off and I asked, have anybody ever been racially profiled by a police officer because you fit the description? Or have you ever been followed in a store because you were deemed suspicious by somebody? I went on to say, don't you see the difference between a white guy who was escorted out of a high school after killing 17 innocent high school students compared to a black guy, a father of 6, a person who died under the own hands of a cop, a person who was supposed to protect you, a guy that died in a chokehold that lasted several minutes while yelling out, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. He was just killed, just like that. And the crazy thing about it is, the officer that was convicted of killing Eric Gardner, Daniel Pattillo, was given a desk job duty as a punishment. It was like a smack in the face. Everybody was silent after that, and the teacher ended the group discussion early. And I remember her pulling me aside and telling me, thank you. Thank you for speaking up in an informative way instead of simply out of anger. And I said, you're welcome. So do I believe that the ongoing racism within our society will ever end? No, it simply won't, because the races that persist within our society will continue to pass it down to their family, and their family will pass it down to theirs. You see, it's impossible for a person to be born and then automatically hate someone simply because of the color of their skin. Do I think that our government's protection system will ever get any better? Yes, I do believe with the right people in office it could happen. And I do see it for the near future to come. And I do hope that my beliefs could be proven wrong and that we as a nation could completely unify as one and come together. But for now, us blacks will continue to fight for our freedom and equality. And I'll be right there alongside with them.